Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
To Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. I'm Susan.
And I'm Lisa.
Today we're going to be talking about veterans and what they face when they come home.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues that are in the news, we've been hearing about, and so today we're gonna address that issue.
So, our viewers know that a lot of what drives our shows is what's going on in our lives personally, things that we read about, and just, really what we value and what's important to us. And I can tell you that in my family growing up, veterans and veterans affairs was always something that was really important. My father, God rest his soul, he died a couple of years ago, but he was a World War II veteran, 100% disabled, injured in the Battle of Saipan.
Wow.
So who he was as a man, because he was, I think, 22 years old when he was injured, 22, 23. So who he was as a man and who he was, as a father was really kind of identified by his being a veteran, and he was very active in the Purple Heart, both locally and nationally. And so it's always something, the veterans' rights and veterans' affairs is always something that's been near and dear to me in my life.
Well, my father was also a World War II veteran. He did not see active duty. He was I shouldn't say active duty, he didn't go overseas, but he was in the Navy, and he talked about it a lot when I was little. Yeah. He died when I was very young, so I only knew him a short time, but I do remember, him talking about the Navy and what it was like, to be in that world. But
For me, growing up and watching my dad, of course, because of his connection with Veterans Affairs, politics was always really something that was critical to him, and veterans' rights, and of course the GI Bill. I happened to go to college on the GI Bill.
Wow.
Most of the financial support that I got for college was through the Veterans Administration. So, it was really wonderful. And now my mom, as a surviving spouse, gets veterans, and frankly, it makes her life really much more livable for her to have those. So, it's just wonderful, wonderful benefit to my family, that level of service, and of course benefit to the whole country for everyone's service.
For what your father did and what he gave in order to...
But he was a humble man. He was a humble man, as many veterans are. They don't I think like human nature is, when you're in the middle of something and you're committed to it and you're committed to doing it and doing it well, you don't necessarily think of the big picture of what's driving
you. It's kind of like, of course you did it.
Yeah, right. And I would say, Dad, but you gave up your life. You practically gave up your life. He was never... I don't know if he was never the same, but he was 100% disabled, having sustained a bullet injury to the brain at a very young age. So it was, quite challenging for him in many respects.
Well, today we have two awesome guests. We are very fortunate on this show. We have had the privilege of interviewing and talking with a lot of really great guests, and today is no different. Today we have two guests. We have Shawn Morgan from the Vet Center, and he will talk to us about that, what it is, and what we need to know about that. And then we also have Rick Jackson, who is with Troops to Teachers, which is an organization I just recently heard about. So I'm very excited to talk to both of you. So welcome to Real Conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So, Shawn, let's start with you, and if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, and how did you get into this role, and tell us a little bit about the Vet Center.
Well, I actually interviewed on the phone from Baghdad. I was deployed myself in 2004, and I was fortunate enough to see the job posting as a readjustment counselor, which is what I do now. And so I deal with veterans who are coming home now, and those who've been home for a while. I have many Vietnam veterans on my caseload.
Oh, wow.
And many of us at the Vet Center do. So in order to get to the Vet Center, which is part of the VA but a separate branch, you need to be a combat-related, or a combat zone veteran, basically. Your DD-214 says that you were in a combat zone, whether it's anything going back to World War II on forward that was designated.
And is that like a defined geography and time period? Like those two?
Yeah, very often it is. It's Kosovo during these dates, Bosnia during these dates, Persian Gulf I, Vietnam, Korea, those specific dates. It's a easily negotiable agency, though. It's not roadblocks first and then we'll talk to you later. We're very open to helping veterans in any way we can. If someone comes and they're not in the right place, we'll send them to the right place. We don't just say, "Well, sorry, we can't help you. Have a good day."
Well, that's pretty great.
We're a very, in many ways that the VA is, we are a very veteran-focused agency, as we should be.
Yes.
Is that the name of it, the Vet Center?
It is, and occasionally we'll get a call about someone's cow or their horse, and we'll say, "No, you've reached the wrong number," and we'll send them on the right way.
Before we get into too much detail about it, you said that you were in Iraq when you applied. So first of all, thank you for serving.
Sure.
And second of all, can you tell us like what interested you in this particular job role?
Well, having been in the Army for almost 20 years at the time, it was a natural fit. I mean, I certainly have a military side of me, although I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Many people don't see those two as reconcilable, but so it was a really natural fit. I had been working with substance abusing adolescents and things like that, and I saw the posting and I thought, this is a really great opportunity for working with an important population. My first official capacity as someone in this was I was walking through one of the dining facilities in Mosul, and there was a gentleman there who his head was wrapped as if he had been injured, and I was talking with him, and he was just chomping at the bit to get back out there and really sort of face this fear that he had. And I, being a social worker since 1997 or so, I took a moment just to chat with him, although I was in the capacity of being a senior non-commissioned officer in the Army at the time. So there was a little bit of a blur of the role, but it really was an important moment for me to realize the kind of work that I wanted to do. So I was very fortunate to do this kind of work. So
let's get you in here, Rick. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization that you work for.
Well, Troops Teachers is a federally funded program through No Child Left Behind. It's run by the Department of Defense through DANTES, Defense Activity for Non-Traditional Education Support. And they have an MOU with a number of the states to provide coordinators, such as myself, to talk about the Troops Teachers program and provide assistance to eligible military personnel to transition into careers as public school teachers. At the same time, they're providing public school teachers with this dedicated, motivated, experienced individual. And that's really what it is, and that's what I love about this program, because I see a wider range of military personnel that are coming back, really don't know what they want to do, and I tell them, listen, you have these skills. You may not have the academics yet, and that's where Troops Teachers can come into play to help you get those academics with some funding to do so. But look at what you can do out there in that classroom to provide. And I have just a number of wonderful individuals that have come through the program, done some wonderful things that I could tell you about if you'd like to know.
Are they primarily women, primarily men?
The majority are men,
Yeah.
but we do have women coming through. In fact, I just had a young lady call me yesterday who actually is a navigator on C-130s, and she has an elementary school teacher looking for a job. What a wonderful idea. Elementary school student learning that their teacher is a navigator on one of those big planes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely
fabulous.
incredible.
And it's interesting. I asked the question about the gender because I know that there is a shortage of male
Yes,
teachers in the
yes.
K through 5, particularly.
Yes,
right?
and in 1994, when they started the program, Department of Defense started funding it. That's really what they were trying to do, is try to help those public schools get those individuals into the elementary school classrooms. One of the biggest things was their seller
Because
at
for
the
some
time.
of these youngsters, there's no male role
No
model,
male-
and a public
absolutely.
school teacher would provide an excellent role
Absolutely, and I do have those elementary schools that would like to see a male in there. Not to say that male or female is any different, but the role model
Yeah.
is what they're looking
model.
for.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You know, we had a show, I think it was maybe our 3rd show or so. It was about who are you if you're no longer fill in the blank.
Your job,
From
right.
your job, because at that time I was recently unemployed and looking for what was next for me. So as you described these people in the military thinking, hey, I'm going to be completing this next, and I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what I want to do. You know, it never occurred to me that there was a transition point for these folks coming out. Like,
What's next?
what's next
What's
for
next?
me?
And
How do I take what I currently know
Exactly.
and translate it into my future state?
And the military does provide a transition program for those people separating from the active service and the reserve services. They're called TAP or ACAP for the Army. And I do actually go to those programs. They invite me in to talk about the Truth Teachers program. And it provides them with some idea of, and I actually do a word association with them to talk about different types of things that teachers do versus what the military does. And they find that a lot of those are identical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. So what kinds of things are people dealing with when they're coming home? You know, they're leaving active duty and they're coming home. I mean,
We talked somewhat about career transition, you know,
Right.
what do I do with these skills, but what are some of the other issues?
Well, that's a lot of what we deal with at the Vet Center is we're part of the VA that is Readjustment Counseling Services. We're part of Veterans Healthcare, but there's the hospital branch and the Readjustment Counseling Service branch. So what our primary focus is helping people to reintegrate back into society, because the combat zone is a very different kind of world.
Yeah.
The rules are different. The way you schedule your day is different. The way your day is scheduled for you is different. So coming home, going from a relatively unsafe place to a relatively safe place, some of those things need to be adjusted and tweaked, and that's what we really help people to do is try to integrate back into the family, back into their work site, whether it's finding a new career or not, and then also back into the social spectrum where they're dealing with friends and relatives who have questions, who want to know what's going on for them, and maybe they ask the wrong question sometimes, and very often veterans. And anything I say isn't, everybody experiences this.
No, of course.
But by and large, veterans feel that people won't understand what their experiences were, and that tends to cause them to isolate a little bit. The only people who really understand them were the men and women who were right there beside them.
Right.
That's understandable. In looking for guests for the show, one of the organizations I had heard about was Blue Star Mothers. You're probably familiar with it, but it's an organization that they're mothers of active military personnel. And I went on their website, and they have links to the weather in Baghdad and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And it actually made me cry a little bit because I just thought, and I looked on, it was 100 degrees in Baghdad yesterday. And it was really emotional for me because I thought how many moms are coming to these sites and, and just to see that, just to experience a little bit about what their son or daughter is experiencing. So anyway, so if somebody is interested in finding out more information about either of your programs, what are some of the things they can do?
We have a website that you can go to. It's www.vetcenter.va.gov, G-O-V. Or they can call the local vet center, which is at 626-5130. And then they can ask us any question they want. And as I said, if they've come to the wrong place, we can certainly direct them to the right place.
So you kind of, in some ways, act as a, I don't want to say triage, that's not the right word, but like a direction, you help direct people.
311
Most
system
people,
or something.
most people who come to us are in the right place. They've certainly qualified for the service that we provide, and very often though, some people will come in looking for a job and we'll say, well, we can sort of point you in that direction, but this isn't the place to help you find a job. We do have a New York State Division of Veterans Affairs benefit counselor on site. So
that's
if
wonderful.
there's someone coming in looking for benefits, we can certainly refer them over to him, and he's great. He's a hard-working guy. So.
And how about for you, Rick?
Well, the national office has their own website, www.proudtoserveagain.com.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And it actually has contact in that website for all the state offices. So if you are interested in teaching in New York State, my contact information is on there. My website is on there. They have tons of information about what Teachers does on there. They have a self-eligibility guide on that website, on their national website. On my particular website, when you get on it, not only do I have all the information that National has and related information, but I also try to help you with understanding some of the funding that is out there in addition to what Teachers has, not only here in New York State, but also nationally.
I used to work at Higher Education Services Corporation.
I was going to say Higher Education Services Corps, absolutely. In fact, one of the things I'm telling a lot of the veterans about that they're not aware of, such as this gentleman here, he and I are both eligible for one of the Higher Education Services Corps benefits called Veterans Tuition Assistance for combat vets. My claim
There's
to fame.
also loan forgiveness programs.
There is loan, yes, there are loan federally wise. There are loan forgiveness programs for those individuals.
There may be state loan forgiveness programs
There are,
too. I'm not sure about that, but there might be something.
Well, you would be more familiar being Higher Education Services Corps, but I do send them to those links. I have links to that. And I'm very surprised the number of veterans that are not aware of that. So
it's amazing,
I do try to bring that out because New York State, I mean, even Governor Patterson in 2008 created the Council on Returning Veterans.
Oh, I saw that.
Which actually is an attempt by New York State to get a handle on what veterans assistance is out there that New York State is providing, both on the private side and the state side and the government side, and actually try to create, in the way it was explained to us, as a roadmap, so that if someone does walk into his office and they're looking for assistance to try to become a teacher, okay, here's teachers over here. Or I'm looking for funding to go to school, well, here's another place you can go over here. Or if I'm looking for something other than that. And actually, they said even an individual that might walk into a PTA meeting might be able to get assistance by talking to the principal, and the principal will be aware which direction to point them in. So that's a tremendous goal that they're trying to set.
And if I can just tag on to what he's saying, there are so many services out there, and I actually participated in a study, and they were saying, what do veterans need? What's lacking? And I really believe that there's a whole range of services that just aren't known about or aren't funded adequately. And if, it's not about reinventing the wheel and having yet another service that I'll never find or won't have enough funding. Fund what's there and really help people to find them, is really my view of the whole thing.
One question I have, and I don't know if this is something that you see, but I tend to think, and the work that I do is a lot of working with organizations and helping people learn how to communicate more effectively. And one of the things I run up against is people don't often want to ask for help because asking for help makes them look weak, they think. And I wonder if, and this may just be a stereotype of mine, here we have these incredibly independent, as well as team players, like these strong veterans coming home, men and women.
They've had to be really strong.
Yeah, and to ask for help might feel like going against their personality or something. Is that something you guys run up against?
Absolutely, all the time. It's the kind of thing where, well, geez, how come I need help and all these other people don't? And what the reality is I don't know what your experience was or is currently. So although I might make an assumption that you're dealing well and I'm not, as a veteran, I am probably wrong that that everyone is having difficulty transitioning back in their own way, whether it's demonstrated outwardly or not.
Well, I know for myself, I'm a 9/11 survivor. I was at the World Trade Center on 9/11, and shortly, I was a social worker at the time, so we share that. And so I was like, I'll handle this, this. And for about 3 months, I didn't realize what a daze I was in until it all started to fall apart about 3 months later. And I went out, got help, and it was all good. Can't believe how many years it's been now. But so so I just think I like to think I'm pretty self-aware, right? And even for somebody like me to have that barrier, not even that I thought, I'm going to look bad if I get help. It was more for me, I didn't think I needed it.
Right.
You know, and I think that may be an issue. You know, I don't need help finding a job, or I don't need help, you know, dealing with these issues.
Well, I think just generally people they're not necessarily thrown to asking for help. I mean,
I agree.
It's not American. I mean, we're individuals, we're
Rugged
strong.
individuals.
Rugged, right.
Pull yourself up
The
by your
great frontier.
bootstraps.
And we still
Get over it,
still think that that's really valuable.
Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive to look for help or, you know, be part of a team necessarily.
Right.
And very often that's been the military culture, is
Sure.
to, you know, to view mental health issues as some kind of a defect or a weakness. And they're actually working against that stigma as well in many ways. You know, they're really looking at ways to not get rid of people just because they're dealing with, you know, normal combat stress issues.
Yeah.
You know, certainly when it gets to a place where it interferes with your performance, then they're going to look to get rid of you. But if you're able to maintain your job performance, even though you're having these mental health issues, perhaps, you know, then they look to keep you. And they're trying to get rid of the stigma right now.
I would think it would be really helpful to have, and they probably already do, I mean, like on-site ways to relieve the stress.
Right.
Like,
And
you know, workout places and, you know,
there are
rec centers.
Right. There are
and all that,
many
right?
morale, welfare, recreation programs
Sure.
within. But they also have mental health folks on the ground,
Yeah.
combat stress teams that are attached to hospital units. Right there on the ground, you can go and really debrief and process things right there, which is always...
The CUNY
great.
system itself, the CUNY system has counseling programs within the CUNY system, City University of New York. And what I learned from them is the federal VA worked with the CUNY students there to set up counselors to be available for SUNY students, CUNY students down in New York City to talk to them about problems as well. So right on campus, they're already starting to
that's
do
great.
just that. And they're teaching the faculty what to look for, so that if you do have one of those individuals who may be showing some signs of something, even though they don't want to come forward, hey, you might want to talk to this individual. And the students that they're having work with the veterans are veterans themselves. So they're trying to have students in these counseling programs that are veterans work with veterans. So you get veterans working with veterans.
That's fantastic, because I think going back to what you were saying about, you know, there's a sense of understanding because you were there, and, you know.
And in the Vet Center program, it is one of their, you know, part of their mission to provide a veteran to talk to for a veteran. The Vet Center was sort of developed out of veterans helping each other, and then it became a whole lot more credentialed and licensed, and we're all, you know, mental health professionals by now. But we have 5 counselors at the Vet Center. 3 of us are veterans. 2 of us went to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. So there is that ability, if you feel you can't talk to anyone but a veteran, then you have that capacity. If you feel you want to talk to anyone but a veteran, you have that capacity. So.
And then there are associations like the DAV and things like that. I mean, are those organizations that you try to source at all or utilize? Are those still relevant organizations?
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of, you know, I know of people who were involved in the VFW, for example, and they're really trying to get the younger veterans to become part of it. And I think it's just a matter of time before they feel like they've earned the title of Veteran of Foreign War, as an example.
And DAV, just for people who don't know,
Disabled
is
American
Right.
veteran, yeah.
Well, I work with individuals from the American Legion, to the Veterans of Foreign Wars, plus there's other little organizations, the American Military Retirees Association, the Military Officers Association of America, the Reserve Officers Association. There are a number of different associations out there. In fact, I was amazed to find out how many there were just here in New York State. And all of them are just wonderful programs that have information, that work on veterans issues, have websites up there that you can go to find out about different things. They have, some of them have some funding available somehow for different programs, some grants for children and so forth. So they're out there, they're wonderful programs. The recent one that I just learned about starting in New York City deals with Iraq and Afghan vets, and they've put out advertisements. If you haven't heard that advertisement lately or seen it on television, where it talks about a veteran coming back and there's questions being asked of that veteran: are you going to get a job yet? You know, so did you shoot anyone? You know, one of the things that I found was very difficult for me coming back was, and especially being in the classroom talking to students, they did ask me that question. And I had to deal with that answer, and my answer was, I did my job. Whether or not that entailed something other, that's for me to know. But I did my job. Trust me, that's all you need to know.
I was at the dentist for a routine exam for the Army Reserve because I'm still in the Army Reserve. And when he was done doing his exam, he said, "So, did you kill anybody?" And I thought,
Oh my
I thought
God.
something I won't say, but what I answered him, and you know, the viewers can certainly subscribe to this notion, that is never an appropriate question to ask anyone.
No.
Because, you know, very often you have strong feelings about it in either direction. You feel that if you did, you know, maybe you're having some ambivalence about what you did and what you had to do, and you're now that the pressure's off, you're probably humanizing that person that you may have killed. And then the other side is, if you didn't, then you didn't live up to the standard of what it means to be a soldier. So in either direction, it's a
an awful
lose-lose for the
question.
veteran.
There's
It
there's
really
no
is.
good way to
It's just
answer
the wrong
that
question.
and it's
Yeah.
totally appropriate to ask it. Yeah,
Right.
I would think that would be a really personal
Absolutely.
type of,
It's a
And,
very
and that's what
personal.
this program is trying to do. That's what that program there, the Afghan veteran program, is trying to do, telling them that, you know, we do recognize that you are coming back and you need some assistance. We're here to help you, but we're also trying to educate the public in what it is that you went through. Not necessarily tell you, little details of all those things, but tell you, listen, this is what this individual is dealing with. This is what you should do if you wish to help them out. That's a great thing. It's a great program.
Are you noticing any differences with, people who are coming back now versus, like you said, you had Vietnam vets and other vets? I'm only asking because it seems like these situations in Iraq and Afghanistan, wars, I guess, are a lot of National Guard people there. Yes,
And
I mean,
multiple deployments
Right.
as well. yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And I'm
Very
wondering,
difficult.
yeah, I would imagine that it's a different.
Well, you're dealing with individuals that come out of the workforce that do this for however long they're in there, and then are expected to go back into the workforce and then turn around and go back again.
I can't imagine.
How do you go from that? It's a
I
very
work with
difficult
someone
thing.
who's in that situation, and every 6 months he's deployed.
Back again.
And it's very. I mean, he's a great guy, and he's got a great work ethic either way. But it must be difficult for him. I know it's difficult for him to leave his family.
Yeah. And what we find at the Vet Center often is that folks tend to not want to sort of decompress from their combat experiences if they're just going to go again.
Yeah. Why
Those
get
are
back
skills
to
they
normal,
may need. Right.
you know?
Right.
So.
Well, we're down the last couple minutes, believe it or not. Always flies, doesn't it?
It does.
So if you could leave our viewers with anything in particular, we're going to show at the end your websites and how people can contact you, but what else would you like our viewers to know? Rick, why don't you start?
Well, that there are organizations out there to help you, like you've said. You might decide that you want to go it on your own, but if you have any questions, call this office. Call my office. Even though I'm supposedly dealing with how to become a teacher, there are a number of different organizations I've dealt with that through this roadmap they're trying to create through the counseling, maybe I can direct you in that direction to talk
And
to.
I would think also, if you are the family member of a veteran who is returning and you're wanting to know, well, what are the right questions to
Right.
ask or to avoid, you probably would be able to
I've
either
actually-
help or
right.
point them to where
I've
they might
actually
go.
dealt with family members. In fact, I had a mother on the phone that was talking about her son's certificate that was soon to expire. How do I work on extending that? And I told her what their policies are and the procedure for doing that. But she was trying to help him while he was deployed, and this was his second deployment. She was rather concerned. But when I got done with that, I continued on, and I did talk to her about the Blue Star Mothers and maybe how to help get onto their website and find out some information, plus what else the military has. Military One Source. You can go on there as a family member, and there are information about that. You might even be able to find the website for your son's unit and find out information about your son's unit and a blog, and there might be a family member that you can talk to that is in contact with them all the time.
That's great.
Before we go to you, Shawn, we'd never heard from you. I know you were in the Navy and you
Yes.
served in active duty. Was it also in Iraq?
No, I didn't go to Iraq. My little little before the time I graduated in '82. I was an ROTC graduate. I went into the Navy, was on board ship for a few years, traveled over to the Indian Ocean and back again on board the ship. Went down to Rio de Janeiro, terrible place. But they had tough duty, but they called us out of Rio to go to Grenada. So my ship was involved with the Grenada incident. And then it was tough. They sent me off to the Philippines. So I spent 2 years in the Philippines there and came back. I married a girl over there, came back, and just a wonderful place, beautiful country. I learned a lot.
Thank you very much for serving as well. Last thought from you, because we're almost out of time.
Okay. Well, I would say that the readjustment process is a normal one, and you know, we all hear on the news PTSD and, you know, combat stress and all these kinds of terms, but in general, everyone comes back different. I always joke that if you went to Disney World for a year and then had to transition home, there would be an adjustment period getting into that.
Yes.
So the combat zone is clearly a different world than Disney World. So it's important to understand that the process of reintegrating back into the community, back into your family, back into your work life can be difficult. And if you're having difficulty, there is no, you know, there's no weakness in asking for help. Nobody went to a combat zone alone.
No.
They had a team member there with them, someone to help them through it. And we're here to help you transition back and be your battle buddy, so to speak. So.
Well, thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And as promised, we will show their contact information at the end and their websites. But we want to thank you for watching Real Conversations with Lisa and Susan. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Susan.
And we'll see you again real soon.